Blog Talk Radio.
It's time for another great episode of the Stop Doing Nothing Show, the show for high achievers. Now, here's your host, Patrick Allman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Patrick Allman here at Blog Talk Radio for another interesting episode of the Stop Doing Nothing weekly radio show, the show for high achievers. This should be our 7th podcast, and I'm always open to feedback on the podcast, things you'd like to see, things you thought were a problem, so please be sure you send them my way. And one of the ones I did receive recently is that I ramble a little bit too much in the beginning, talking about the philosophy of Stop Doing Nothing and the supporting websites. So I'm going to try to skip that today. I will share some basic information with you if you want to call in and chat with me. The number is 424-222-5282 during the live show, and I'll also be taking questions in the live chat room at blogtalkradio.com/stopdoingnothing. Like I said earlier, we are in episode 7 today, and for episode 7, I'm going to be primarily talking about communication, good communication, bad communication, but more specifically on some of the things you want to look at as you are on your way to being a high achiever, or as a skill that you're going to need to be a high achiever. One of the things that high achievers do is they are very clear about what they want to do. And when they talk to people and people try to get them off the path of where they want to go, they're very good about saying, no thank you, I have a certain goal in life, I have a certain direction I'm going. But part of the challenge is that communication and public speaking in general tends to have a very high fear factor for most people. And this, I have definite experience in this field because I am a longtime member of Toastmasters and of the National Speakers Association. And people join Toastmasters because they are just deathly afraid of speaking. They could have no speaking experience, they could have a little, they could have a lot. But one of the things they do is they join Toastmasters to work in a fail-safe environment when it comes to expressing how they feel and speeches and lectures and things like that. So if you are someone who wants to be a high achiever, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things you're going to have to do is to learn how to be a good communicator. And by good communicator, I mean verbal communicator, I mean body language, I mean the written word, I mean on, you probably won't ever be on television, but if a chance came up for you to be on television in that particular area, you're just going to have to be able to express yourself to people as you march on your way towards building the life that you want to build. Now, like I said in the beginning, I've been in Toastmasters for a while, and that's one of the areas I would recommend that you get involved with also. If you go to the Toastmasters national website at toastmasters.org and look up your local city, state area, they will give you several Toastmaster chapters that meet on various days of the week at various times in your area. I know here in Oklahoma City, we have some that meet every day from Monday morning through Saturday afternoon, and my particular club meets Monday evening. So you're bound to find a club that fits your time schedule. Do me a favor and don't think about that as a someday task. If you've read what the blog at stopdoingnothing.com before, one of the things you realize that I've said before is some of the three worst words are someday, somehow, some way. And so when it comes to your public speaking or when it comes to your communication, please do not put that off. That's a skill I would recommend you get early on as you build your life towards becoming a high achiever. Join Toastmasters. Now, another organization that I belong to is called National Speakers Association, and I believe they're at nsaspeaker.org is where they are, and that's more about the business of public speaking, and that's a very advanced topic, and that's a topic that most people don't need. Most people will be able to get away with going to Toastmasters and learning what they need to there. But if you ever want to get the business of public speaking, look at NSA also. And if you want some more information on that, contact me after the podcast or offline from the podcast, and I will be glad to share the information there. Okay, I have some notes here as to some things you want to look at or what it takes to be a good communicator. I'm going to run through these real quick, and if you're listening, pop in the chat room, give me your feedback, or call me and let me know what the number, like I said before, is 424-222-5282, and we're supposed to be here for another 25 minutes, but you know what? We might end early. Okay, let's talk about some things that you might consider when it comes to improving your communication skills. The first one I would say is when you decide to communicate with somebody, or when you decide to talk to a topic, or when you decide to talk to a group or a classroom, or even when you're pitching another business for their business, be very sure that you know what you're talking about. And what I mean is before you go into any kind of meeting situation or any kind of situation where there's going to be any kind of stress or any kind of situation where there's business involved, I would say do your research. And this is an area that I've definitely fallen on my face on before, and I can definitely speak here. If you're going to, if you want to switch jobs and you have a job interview coming up, I'm sure you've heard this from a headhunter before, from an HR type person, but do your research. If you can, do your research on the individual, but definitely do your research on the company, how big the company is, what the company's lofty goals are, who the company's competition is, where they start, maybe some history of the company. But that's if like I said, if you're on the job hunt. If you're somebody who has a particular goal in mind, maybe a music goal or an athletic goal, or you want to start your business kind of goal, there are areas, especially with the internet nowadays, where you can do plenty of research so you have all of the information you need to talk intelligently about a topic. And, for example, a lot of people that we know want to start their own business. And one of the questions that always comes up in a business startup situation is, do you want to be a partnership? Do you want to be an LLC? Do you want to be an S Corp? Do you want to be a C Corp? And a lot of times when I sit down with someone and they haven't even done the basic research to understand what the different types are, and that's why they're confused. And so use the internet, take advantage of technology, and research your topic. When you go into a situation and then when you have to communicate, even though you've done maybe even just some basic research on the topic, at least the person you're talking to is going to be somewhat impressed by the fact that you know a little bit about the industry or the job that you're interested in or the people that you're talking about. I know when people come to me for either coaching or web design work or search engine optimization, one of the many things that we handle, I know that I am very impressed once they've taken the time to sit down before our call or before our in-person meeting and just understand the basics of what they're talking about. One of the very frustrating things to me when I go in and do some consulting for someone is someone that says they know what SEO, they know something about SEO, and then they want us to come in and help them with it, for example. It's very frustrating when I go in there and I have to explain the very basics of the concept when they told me that was something they already knew. So if you want to be a communicator, look at what was I talking about? Excuse me. You look at doing your research on your topic and know what you're talking about before you get in the situation where you have to talk about it. Let's see. Let me see. What are some of these other things that you can, here's another good one in my notes. Shut up and listen. I can tell you the exact time I learned this lesson. I was working as a consultant for Charles Schwab in San Francisco, up on the coast of San Francisco in the Embarcadero underneath the Bay Bridge area. And I was staying off of a street and hotel, doggone, I can't remember what it is right now. But anyways, I was close enough to walk to Charles Schwab. And I did a lot of consulting there. It was like 3 or 4 blocks away. And one of the things I learned is that you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth, and you should use them in that proportion. In other words, for you to be a high achiever, when you're going to be communicating with somebody, one of the best communication skills that you can learn is shutting up and listening. Listen to what other people have to say before you want to jump in with your opinion and offer to help them. Listen to people's fears, their anxieties, their hopes, their joys, their dreams. But whatever you do, don't necessarily be the one to talk all the time. And here's an experiment I want you to try sometime when you're sitting down with somebody. You could be doing this at a bar or in a business situation or just kind of a casual one-on-one chat at work. When you get engaged with somebody into some kind of conversation and you ask them an open-ended question and let them talk for a while, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. Let them do the majority of the talking. You'll find an amazing thing happens. That person will applaud you and thank you for having a great conversation with them, even though they are the ones that did most of the talking. This has happened to me time and time again. So many people nowadays want to be the ones in control of the conversation and in control of talking. And if you can relinquish that, if you can let somebody else talk and get whatever's on their chest out, you will learn more about them. And when this is especially true is in a business situation where you are going into maybe pitch a client, propose a new prospect, things like that. When you go in to talk to a new client, one of the things you want to do is get them talking as much as possible. And this is especially great in any kind of multi-person meeting situation. I cannot tell you the number of times I've had to go into a meeting with 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and there is a CEO and there's staff members and there's vice presidents. But one of the things I like to do is I like to ask open-ended questions and then shut up and sit there and take notes for the next hour or two. What ends up happening is they try to discover problems they didn't even know they had, number one. You get to learn all kinds of information about them, which is fodder for a great response to their proposal. And then with all that information that you've gathered now, when you have to respond to them with some kind of proposal or some kind of response to their issues, you've taken great notes and you can put results of your notes back into the response of your proposal. And what you're going to find happen is people just get amazed that you know so much information about them. They'll wonder where you got it from. What they didn't realize is that you were being a smart communicator. You were shutting up, you were listening, and you were letting them talk about their particular issues. Like I said, this works great in a kind of conference room business situation where you can get several people talking all at once and maybe even doing some light debating amongst themselves. As the consultant, you can sit back and just watch the interactions back and forth. You can learn definitely who's in charge of a company, because sometimes it's not always the CEO. It may be the administrative staff, it may be the accounting staff. You can learn who runs the company, because it may not always be at the top. I mean, yes, the CEO is labeled the CEO or the executive, but he or she may not necessarily be the one that knows what's going on in the day-to-day process. Or a lot of times what's happened also is in these discovery meetings is people have learned things about the company they didn't know about. It's not uncommon, for example, to go in with a technical staff and a CEO in the same meeting, and the technical staff starts pouring through things, and the CEO is completely shocked and amazed by some of the things he heard, even though he's the one that spends 40 hours a week with these same people. So again, one of the things I could emphasize as a great communicator is to shut up and listen more. Use your ears, use your eyes. Listen and observe. You'd be surprised how many people don't do that, how many people want to talk. Okay, other things I have here in my notes. Be authentic. That's a big one that we miss also in communication nowadays. So many people that are in business or even in personal relationships are very, I'm not going to say necessarily self-centered, but they're very much interested in what can they get out of the relationship or what can they get out of the interaction. And take the time sometimes to basically read between the lines of what somebody's communicating to you and learn about what their true issues are. Their issues may not be what they called you in for. Their issues may not be about what the original conversation was about. Get personal and show how much you care about their topic, about their particular position. Okay, I'm looking through some other notes here. I've got some great notes on public speaking and some other communication things. You need to be a great leader. Let's see, we already talked about that. When you speak to groups, here's another good one. When you speak to groups of people, try to address them as individuals. Because when you speak to an audience, and I do this a lot in conferences, when you speak to an audience, you sometimes will get in the habit of making wide generalizations. You will say all of you, or you referring to the whole group, versus each individual person, because you have to realize that each individual person is in a different situation and wants to hear something different from you. You may be speaking to one or two people, or you may be speaking to 10,000 people at some point in time. But make sure that you address people as individuals. You try to solve their individual issues. You make sure that you're not glazing over people. And I know that can be somewhat of a challenge, and that's why, like I said before, I recommend you do some practice with Toastmasters and things like that. Another good communication topic is to speak in very specific terms in any communication situation. And this is probably one of the top ones on my list, is that when I go into meetings or when I'm in any kind of communication situation, the issues of ambiguity versus specificity, I'm not sure I got that right, it's very hard sometimes to get people to narrow down to absolute numbers and absolute topics that they're concerned about. People love to throw out ambiguities, and as a communicator, sometimes it's comfortable and it's easy to throw out ambiguities. But I would encourage you not to do that. When you're talking to someone about your goals, for example, be very specific. I'm sure you know with my desire tool and whatnot, I'm on a big goal setting kick for the year, like I am every year. And one of the things that you learn about good goals versus bad goals is, you know what, good goals are quantifiable. Good goals are very specific. You don't join a gym, for example, to lose weight. You join a gym to lose 50 pounds. You join a gym to increase, your bench press from 100 pounds to 150 pounds. You join a gym so you can take your 5K time down from 45 minutes to 30 minutes. And you do that by shaving off, 15 to 30 seconds every time you do a 5K. So when it comes to your goal setting, when it comes to your business planning, when it comes to your meeting topics, be very specific. Okay, let me see. By the way, just real quick as a reminder, the call-in number, if you want to call in, is 424-222-5282. And, of course, the live chat room is always available at blogtalkradio.com/stopdoingnothing. Here's something else I would recommend that you also do as to become a good communicator. Read more. Reading well increase your vocabulary, and it will get you to understand topics that you can then present to the particular person that you're talking to. And one of my favorite communication books, and I'm just sorry it took me a while to get here, one of my favorite communication books is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a book by Dale Carnegie, and this book, probably more than any other, changed how I communicate on a one-on-one basis and on a group basis. This book was first published back in October of 1936, and this book has about 10 to 12 different sections, and some of these sections are how to increase your popularity, how to win people to your way of thinking, how to increase your influence, how to handle complaints, avoid arguments. And the challenge with this book is that the title sounds cheesy. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It sounds like a book. It's like a book that would give you an artificial way of generating a social network or of getting people to like you. And I thought that also when I read that book. And I probably read this book for the first time 10 years ago, and I've reread it different chapters ever since then, and I can tell you it is not that kind of book. This book is a great book, and it basically lays out some of the basic human communication traits that we have, for lack of a better term, gotten lazy on. For example, one of the ones I really like in communication is the section on fundamental techniques on handling people. And there's two areas in here that I'm very happy with. One of them is the don't criticize, condemn, or complain. If you want to be well-liked, and most of us do, but also if you want to be looked at as a good communicator, there is no reason to ever condemn, criticize, or complain about another person in a public setting. There's no, even when you have the chance, what you shouldn't be doing is you should not be looking for a way to belittle somebody else. It's embarrassing to that person, and it likely will put that person at odds with you. And to the other people who you're belittling that person in front of, it makes you seem like somewhat of a jackhole, to tell you the truth. If I'm going to get an extreme word as possible without cursing, when you insult somebody else in public, or you insult their work, or you put them down in any way, shape, or form, it's well, for lack of a better term, it's just wrong. It looks bad for them. It looks bad for you. So, don't criticize, condemn, or complain in public. I'm looking through some other topics in this book here that just really changed my life. Let me see. Let's see. I mean, there's just so many good things in this book. Here, let's start with this one right here. One of the other ways that you can basically come off as a great communicator is admitting your mistakes very, very fast. If you've made a mistake about a particular topic that you presented, basically review that mistake and expose it as soon as possible. Expose it before somebody else gets a chance to expose it. You'll be looked at as, again, someone who's a great communicator, but someone who's a human being who knows they make mistakes and is not too prideful to the point to where they are, to where they're going to basically let their ego get in the way of saying, I made a mistake. One of the things that really, by the way, takes the fight out of any kind of argument anymore is saying that you were wrong about something. And this was an early life lesson I had to learn a long, long time ago in business and in my personal life, is basically using the phrase, I am wrong, I made a mistake. If people use that particular phrase more often in any kind of communication-based situation, you would find out that you just take the fight out of somebody else. If you are at odds with somebody else and you made a mistake, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll continue fighting against your point because it's your point and you're going to protect it even when you voluntarily you'll voluntarily argue even though you know without a doubt that you are wrong. So when you are in a situation like that where you are wrong, admit it early and admit it often. When it comes to being a leader and a communicator, here are some points from this book that I would recommend you take a look at sometime also. When, in addition to not criticizing or condemning in public, every chance you get, make sure you praise somebody in public. Don't criticize, condemn, praise in public, condemn in private. I can't remember where I heard that phrase. It didn't come from Dale Carnegie, but he offers supporting statements for it. Condemn in private, praise in public. When you are going to work with somebody and you want them to do something for you, you might consider asking them questions as opposed to giving direct orders. That was the one of the other points there in the Dale Carnegie book that I was very happy to talk about. And one of the last points here I'm going to cover today is I can't emphasize, obviously, enough the whole thing about Toastmasters, but if you're somebody who wants to be a public speaker or a communicator, learn how to tell better stories. Rather than present technical facts, and that's the background I come from. I come from an IT background where we have to present technical facts a lot. Try to formalize a story around your facts and present it in a way that's somewhat dramatic and somewhat appealing. If you've ever been to any kind of conference, you've seen that there are various degrees of public speakers. There are good ones and there are bad ones, and to each his own, but when you see a good one, you know a good one, and when you see a bad one, you know a bad one. If you notice, a lot of the good ones will tell stories. They won't just present facts. They may weave the facts throughout their story, but they will present an emotional story, either a personal story or a story they know about. And those people that present that kind of story attract a better audience. They're regarded as a better speaker, and people want to go back and see them more. What you also learn is when you build stories and you talk to people in terms of stories that they appreciate, it allows you to express emotion. Not only can you express emotion about how you feel about a topic, you can let this emotion carry through to your audience, and you can let them feel an emotion also. And there are two different takeaways you can give an audience. You can basically let them walk away with facts you presented A, B, or C, or you can let them walk away with a feeling that what they can do is not out of reach, a feeling that, the goals they want to do, whether they're spiritual, personal, psychological, technical, that those are within their grasp, and that they are not as bad off as they originally thought they were. So again, learn how to tell stories, learn how to express yourself emotionally. I hope these communication tips have been useful for you today. Now, this is the part of the show where I tell you to connect with me here at the end. Subscribe to the station at blogtalkradio.com/stopdoingnothing. Like our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/stopdoingnothing. And more importantly, go to the website stopdoingnothing.com, and on the right-hand side, fill in your information and subscribe to get some free tips and learn about the webinars, learn about Blog Talk Radio, learn about the other things that we have going on. It's been a pleasure to do the talk radio show for you again. I will do a better job about getting the topics out ahead of time. By the way, you can also follow me, Patrick Allman, all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, et cetera, and learn all about what I do. I would also encourage you to definitely go to the YouTube, because every day when I do the Blog Talk Radio show, I also do a video on a new technical topic that I do a screencast, and I show you my mouse, I show you how things work, and I call it 3 in 5, where I express 3 points in 5 minutes. So they're very quick videos for those of you that don't have a lot of time. I would encourage you to take a look at those also. Again, this has been Patrick Allman at the Stop Doing Nothing, a weekly radio show here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central, the show for high achievers. Thank you for your time. I know you could have chosen to do anything in the world, but you chose to listen to this. Now go out there and be a high achiever, and we will talk to you next week.